watch out, that your skin can bring you so much pain. Now I hear you say.
The inaugural Geelong Running Festival is on Sunday, 20th of September, taking runners through iconic Kardinia Park and along the stunning Corio Bay foreshore. Choose your distance, the marathon, half marathon, or 6.5k community run on a course certified by World Athletics. Enter now at geelongrunningfestival.com.au. And we have here event founder, race director, Lee Troop. Welcome back to Inside Running Podcast.
Thanks, mate. Good to be back.
Yeah, well, it's good to have you back in Geelong. I know last time, episode 41, August 2018 was the last time you were on the show.
Oh, gee whiz. So it's a while.
It's a long time ago. And it was, I was in your house in Boulder. Kids were small, probably at school. Now I think your daughter works down the road here.
She does. She works at Folklore just around the corner. She's 20 doing her second year of university, and Max and Jack must have only been about 6 or 7 when you were over there. And yeah, 2018 feels like such a lifetime ago. I mean, it was 9 years ago, and I think 2018 was the worst year I had in my life. So yeah, I've tried to put a lot of that behind me.
Yeah. Well, what's been going on since then?
So 2018 was a rough year. So I unfortunately had an elite athlete that had committed suicide that year, and I owned a running store, which you do, and it was part of a franchise, and unfortunately I wanted to move on and create an independent running store, which didn't go down well with the owners, and so found myself in a little bit of legal trouble, and as a result of that lost the store and lost the house, and coaching became really hard, and yeah, life just at that particular time seemed to just really punch me in the head and knock me into the ground. But able to work back from that through 2019, and then COVID hit. So I was back to square one again in 2020. But over the last 5 years, sort of got into events and really working on event and race directing. Finished coaching, so coached Jake Riley, an Olympic marathoner for the US.
Yep. I think we might have talked about him perhaps during the interview.
Yep.
He wasn't there at that point. Maybe it was like in the lead up to the trials event.
Coming back from injury, so he'd been in the Hanson's group
Yeah.
and then left them after 2016, came to Boulder, had some haggling issues with both Achilles. We had to get that sorted. And I think he did his first race in 2018, which was like a low-key elementary school, a Cole Elementary School 5K, which he won. So yeah, to go from that all the way through to making the Olympics, and then he got obviously affected, like most, with COVID and the Olympics not until a year later, which really upset the momentum and trajectory he was on. But I coached up until 2024, so I now no longer coach elite athletes and put all my energy into race directing. And then unfortunately my father passed away in 2023. He had brain cancer and had had a long battle with it over 7 or 8 years, and my wife decided it was time to move back. So sort of transitioned the family back here. I'm still in the States, so I'm backwards and forwards. And I guess, you know, in what we're here to talk about is the Geelong Running Festival. But in 2018, in October, as I was sort of starting to get my head back out of that hole and dark place I was in, I had spoken to the city about starting a marathon. And unfortunately, that's taken a long time. But the reason why I'm back and going to eventually be back here full time is because of the Geelong Running Festival.
Yeah, and I know you grew up in Geelong. There was always little races around Geelong, but has there ever been a marathon in Geelong?
So the Geelong Cross Country Club will say that they did a marathon, and so there actually has technically been a marathon. But if you know anything about the Geelong Cross Country Club, you have to be a member. So they might have had 50 people or 30 people run it as a member-only event. So there's never been a public marathon ever in Geelong. I started the first Run Geelong in 2009.
I did it.
Yeah.
I was on the start line with Mona, Scott Rantel.
Yeah.
I remember that it pissed rain and the speakers went out or something fizzed out with the electronics, and I remember thinking it couldn't be the worst weather for the first event.
It was a crazy day. I remember an old person was driving their car on the course that they shouldn't have, and I had to stop him and get him out of the car because we were only minutes away from starting the race, and it was raining, and yeah, it was a tough introduction to doing a road event. And I had Jason Hartman, who I was coaching from the US, who had come over, and there were a few people that were running Gold Coast, so they actually did that event as a lead into Gold Coast. But yeah, it was a really tough first up event. But we achieved everything that we wanted to achieve, and that was I wanted to emulate an event very similar to Run for the Kids in Melbourne and raising money for our local hospital. I also wanted to showcase Geelong, so Marrable Street, the race went through the stadium, it went over the James Harrison Bridge, Marrable Street Bridge, and we put on a really, really great event. So the marathon, in essence, is being driven from that original concept, but just on a much, much bigger scale, a $1.5 million scale. So it's obviously going to cost a lot of money and a lot of time, but I'm excited that in 10 weeks' time we actually get to deliver it and do it on a scale that a lot of people in Geelong will never have seen.
Yeah, and we will get into it, all the complexities around logistics and the course and some of the highlights. But I forgot to mention there's been another Australian win the Gold Coast Marathon.
Have to, like that. I've got to tell you, I don't know a lot about him, but what I do know about him, he's unbelievably impressive. And I'm not talking about his running pursuits. I mean, everyone's going to know that he's broken the Australian record. He's the first Australian after me 20 years ago to win the Gold Coast Marathon. But just his humility and how humble he is and how gracious he is. He's an unbelievably polite, well-spoken individual, and I think he's the typical person that as Australians we're going to get behind his story from where he's come from to here, his representation of our country, but just more importantly, just again that humility that he has in being successful but still speaking very calm and poised is amazing.
Oh, and it's sort of come at this timely point in this political landscape we've got at the moment about an immigrant or like a refugee, or I'm not sure the exact specifics of the term for him, but someone who's come from another country, grown up here, and then representing us so well.
We are in a very political and politicised realm at the moment, and I'll take the stance in that I love Australia for its multiculturalism. I love so many things that Australia stands for, and he completely reiterates that opportunity to come to another country, to embrace our country, and then also now represent our country. I mean, they're the stories. I mean, our country's been built off immigrants, right? So I think this just adds another layer to it. And the fact that he's a runner makes it more personal for you and I and most of people that will be listening on this podcast. So yeah, I thought it was just a great race. I thought Adam Didyk has done he's done a fantastic job in setting up his tempo group in Adelaide. They didn't really have a lot of depth over there. There's been some great runners that have come through over the years, but to create a stable of runners and to have the success that he's had is a very big testament to him. And to have to do what he did, I think is great. And I'm excited to see his progress over the years to come, and obviously with the next Olympics that are coming up and hopefully the Olympics after that. As an old school runner, it's sort of hard for me to get my head around, right? Like if we'd had this conversation 7 or 8 years ago, I'm sitting at number 5 as a marathoner, and then now all of a sudden the super shoes have come out and so much has changed in training and diet that now all of a sudden if you're not running 2:8, you're not cutting it. So
well, you're running Valencia as well. Like the races are all geared toward as fast as possible.
Yeah,
it is a bit different. But is there a little club you got, like a little Facebook, WhatsApp group or something with the sub 210 club? You all just throw messages in now and then?
No, I've moved away from the sport in a positive way, not in a bad way. I think for my own growth as a human being and as a person, if you hang around in the sport too long, and then all these things come along, you start to become bitter and twisted and jaded, right? And so the super shoes has changed a lot, and it is such a hot topic. And in the US, it never ends. And you're always going to have old school versus new school. And the topic that will always come back referring to someone that's old school is that they're jealous. And I can tell you 9 out of 10 people aren't jealous. It's just how do you create the metrics of everything that an athlete back at that time has worked for, that how could they not run 2:06 or 2:07? You then start comparing, the athletes, the training, and it always comes back to the super shoe. So for me, I've stayed out of the debates. I'll say that yes, they do add to performance. I mean, that's why Nike called them the 4%, because they added at least 4 minutes. So that is not a debate. Where things start to get lost in translation is where people start to get really heated in these conversations, and nothing is balanced. It's a little bit like politics and religion, and our sport, I guess, is a form of religion. But I stay out of it just because of the fact that you end up getting, you do get affected and you get emotionally drained from having conversations. So I don't worry too much about times anymore. What I look for when people are racing is where they finish in their places. So if we have Australians that are going to be in the top 10, everyone's wearing the super shoes, everyone's doing the training, everyone's got their diets, but you judge it on that performance. And I think that's a better way of looking at it than where times have completely come off the scales. Now, I've also had some people say, well, you broke Ron Clark's record. Yeah, Ron Clark ran his on cinders. I ran mine on a track. What I look at is not necessarily comparing the 3 seconds that I was faster by Clarkie. What I look at is who I competed against, who prior to me had tried to break that 5K record, and then where I stood in realm of all those other athletes. So I've always been pretty balanced when it comes to the conversations, but sometimes having conversations with people that don't care about what balance is and they just want to have a heated argument makes it draining. So for me, I don't coach anymore. I follow the sport very loosely, and I put now my time and effort into creating events like this, coaching community people, so people that might want to break 6 hours for a marathon and they've got issues with health, life, coming from family issues, work issues, and trying to give them balance and structure so that running becomes a weapon for them to help them with everything else that they're dealing with. So I enjoy that a lot more with just where I am in life at the moment at 53.
And you're going to give the Geelong runners a chance to, I guess, express that challenge or challenge themselves at Geelong Running Festival. So 2018, you're sitting in Boulder and you thought Geelong needs a marathon. So tell us a little bit about like how you go from having that thought sitting at home to making it actually happen, because that's 8 years since you thought about it to actually kicking it off. That's a long time.
Yeah, so I wrote an email to Sharon Cockrell, and at that time there was some upheaval with the Run Geelong event.
Who's Sharon Cockrell?
So she was in charge of major events at the City of Greater Geelong, and that's who I'd worked with when I did the Ron Clark Classic, the Nathan Deeks Race Walking Challenge that we did in 2006, and Nathan coincidentally broke the world record that day, and then when we started Run Geelong. So I'd worked with them. I left because there was some upheaval after the first event that we'd done with Run Geelong, and I just decided I wanted to get away and move away, and I was a little frustrated and upset with some things that happened. So I moved to the States, and then in 2018 there was rumblings about an issue with Run Geelong, and I got a phone call asking if I'd come back and take the event on because it had been my event and I had been unceremoniously put out. And so I considered it, and I'd made some phone calls, and then as it turned out, Geelong Hospital were going to take it over, Bowen Health, were going to take it over. They had already outsourced it to someone else, and unfortunately it opened some really bad wounds for me. And so I was like, all right, well, now it's time for a marathon. I'm sick of this. And so I emailed the city and I spoke to the mayor at the time, and they were all excited about the possibilities. So I put together some concepts of what I wanted to do, which is nothing to what it is today. We got approval for that. And so I'd started the process in 2019 of putting things together, but then we got railroaded with COVID, and that really affected the next 2 or 3 years on a number of fronts. The biggest one being that everyone that you work with, there had been all these changes. So people that had been in roles had moved on, new people had come in. Everyone was trying to rebuild what they had or lost, that there just wasn't enough momentum at that time for a new event to come in.
Yes.
And so I had really got to the point thinking, okay, maybe the opportunity had lost itself. But then Councillor Eddie Contell went to New York in 2022, and he ran the New York Marathon, and he finished it and said, why can't Geelong have something like this? Now, I mean, obviously, New York Marathon, Geelong, there's a big gap in between. But he was just like, we have the capabilities to do it. We have the backdrop for it. Why hasn't it been done? So I emailed him and I sent him all these files and I said, well, this is where I'm at. This is as far as I've got. I'd love to have the conversation with you. So I flew back to Australia. I met with Eddie and he was just like, what do I need to do? And I told him where we'd got to, some of the problems that I'm facing at the moment. And a lot of it was it was hard to get past that first level. A lot of the people that work in those roles are very used to just saying no. It's a lot of work, it's hard.
Like the council roles, do you mean? Yeah,
correct, yeah. It was just easy to say no. But thankfully, Eddie had made some headway for me so that when I actually went to present and spoke to council and major events and key stakeholders, they were all very embracing of it. And then that's gone on to then speaking with, state government, emergency services, and everybody loved it. And the biggest thing is always making sure that the impacts are going to be minimal. So residents and businesses, the impact is minimal. Emergency services are not affected. So what pathways do they have? If roads are all closed off, how can they be able to get around all of that without basically someone dying as a result that they couldn't get there on time?
Is that your job to design that?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Your job is to make sure that you can easily put things in place that should the worst case scenario happen, there is a positive outcome for that to work out.
And is there apps that you like model that, or do you just have to kind of draw up your own system?
So I had 6 different versions of a course. Right. So each time you go into a meeting, they will give you the worst case scenarios, and then you've got to go back and then work out, all right, I was going to put this particular road in, let's take that out and we'll move the course around here. So ambulance, fire brigade, police, then you've got 2 hospitals. So John O'God Hospital, Geelong Hospital.
And they're all in the city too.
They're all in the city.
Yeah.
And the city is right on the bay. So when you close off the city, no one can get east-west. Murrible Street is the line that runs north-south. So when you close that off, no one's getting east-west. So we had to come up with all these different ways of like, how can we get everyone through the city so that the city can open up? Westfield's not affected because they would open at 10 o'clock. What time do we need to do that? Where do we run it? What way do we go? We couldn't do a 5K, 10K, half marathon because that was going to be too big and too much impact. And one of the things that I listened to from people doing certain races is when there is too much on, how it affects the finish for them. It's too congested, or the start's really congested and everyone's falling over each other. So we tried to find a really fluid way of how do we create an event all on one day, because the city was only going to give us one day. So we've come up with a 4-mile race, 6.5 half marathon. We've also got a wheelchair half marathon. But then we were fortunate to be able to put together a kids race and an all abilities race on the Saturday morning so that nobody missed out. So we've ticked off all the stakeholders. I had hoped to do it last year, but we ran out of time. Hindsight's wonderful, and I'm glad that we're doing it in 2026. It's given us much longer period to secure sponsors, get volunteers, make the event even better, like really tight so that we've got all our bases covered. We've had Kardinia Park come to us and say that they'd like to be involved in the event. So the race runs through Kardinia Park, which I think is amazing.
I've seen a bit of that, and big screens involved maybe.
Yeah, big screens, entertainment. So we're going to have a lot of entertainment out on the course.
Well, just on the course, what are the major kind of highlights? Because Geelong's got a few iconic areas.
Yep.
Well, they're iconic to us because we're from here.
Yeah.
But can you tell, like, what are your highlights of the course?
Yep. So I think just to go back a step, the way I wanted it is I wanted it to be very locally centric. So I want community pride, community passion. Geelong seems to get a lot of heat with a lot of things that are going on at the moment with the state of the city and things like that. So I was like, how do we make this positive, and how do we remind people the amazing iconic buildings and landmarks that we have? And then secondly, we're supported by state government and Visit Victoria, Geelong Tourism. How do we get people to come here and actually enjoy what Geelong's got to offer? So the course is on the waterfront. That's what we're known for. Jeff Kennett came down here in the 90s and made sure that the waterfront picked its game up because it was such a great attraction to have. So state government also built a $430 million convention centre. So we're like,
$430 million.
$430 million, Naya Bunyal. So we're like, how do we tie all this in? So I started to map out what are some of the iconic buildings that we have. And we've got Osborne House in North Geelong, which was used during World War II. We've also then got the T&G building in the city, which in 1932, T&G Mutual had been involved with that. Kardinia Park, which I tell people that in 1901 it was a zoo, which people don't know that.
Never
they
heard
just know
that
it as the
before.
football
Is that
club.
for real?
That is for real. It was a zoo in 1901.
Really?
Yeah. So we start going through all this history and you start going, wow, Geelong's actually got a lot. We've got Johnson's Park, we've got the Botanical Gardens, even a place called the Palais, which was known for bingo. Way back in the early 1900s, it was on the waterfront known as Joy's Ark, and that was a roller skating rink and a movie theatre.
Yeah, right.
So then it had a fire, but the structure was okay, so they took it and put it at the top of the hill. Well, we've had so many great bands play there in the 80s that ended up becoming national iconic bands. So little things like that, I was like, how do we pull it all together to tell the story? So the course goes up through the north. So you get to run through Rippleside Park, Osborne House, and take in that. We cross over the highway where we've got the great Geelong Basketball Centre with Geelong Venom that's there. That used to be the Supercats.
Yeah.
You run down in through North Geelong and then you go over the Telegraph Bridge, which is an extremely iconic bridge, particularly now with the Cadell Evans cycling event. You're back onto the waterfront and then you sort of wind back onto Mercer Street, which then takes you into the city. So you're going to go past Johnson's Park, you go onto Mallop Street, you go up Marooble Street and down to the stadium, and that's the tallest and highest point of the course.
What point in the course? What kilometre?
That's going to be at 8.5 kilometres, and you'll hit that twice. So you'll hit it at 8.5, drop down, and then you'll come back at 10.5 and hit that. So it's 2K from there into the stadium, through the stadium, and you drop back down. And then you head up into Eastern Park, and as you're going around Eastern Park, that's where there's a diversion between the half marathon and marathon because they start at the same time. And the marathoners will head out along Lime Burners and then out to Point Henry. And that'll be the flattest part of the course and could be the toughest part of the course if it's really windy and wet. Whereas the half marathoners, they stay in Eastern Park and then make their way back towards the finish line. What we're aiming to do in combat on that section out to Point Henry is it's called the Music Miles. So every mile there's going to be music entertainment that's going to be out there to help keeping runners motivated and excited and hopefully enthusiastic as they make their way then back to Geelong. So there were other parts of that I wanted. I wanted the race to cross over the river and include the Marooble Street Bridge and things like that. But in our first year, this was the best that we could get. And I would say that I got 80% of what I wanted for the course. And the best part is that as we grow and things become more cemented, we can grow out. I didn't want to concede in the early days where it was going to be a 2-lap half marathon course, lock that in, but then never be able to grow. So a lot of the delay in getting it to where this is because I fought and fought and fought to be able to get as much as we could into the course so that if this is the best that it is, at least we've got something. If it gets to grow, it'll be even better rather than having to start off low and then we never get an opportunity to expand.
So what is there an event out there or a marathon that you've modelled the vibe of this on?
There's lots, right? So when you think of New York City Marathon, right, the way that it's embraced by not only the town, but then all the spectators that are watching the race. Like you run up First Avenue and it is amazing. Like there's no other race that comes close. But then you look at Boston and the iconic part of that you start in Hopkinton and you run all the way to Boylston Street and it's been going for 130 years, right? And the way that the residents embrace it and they enjoy it. Then you flip over to London, right? And again, they've got all the iconic marks of, the Thames, Big Ben, London Bridge, all those parts. So, and I've done Berlin, right? You run through the gates. And so it was like Geelong has a lot to offer. And I feel like that we don't celebrate it enough. The strength of this marathon is the Cadell Evans is a cycling race for professional athletes. what helped that was bringing in a community ride. It is on the first day and then everyone watches the elites. The beautiful part about this is everyone gets to do it together.
Yeah.
So there's no separation of groups or abilities. We've got an extension on our marathon now out to 6 hours and 40 minutes, which is in line with Gold Coast. So we now get to enjoy it and celebrate it together, which I think is a plus. But pulling all those races and how they've done it to be able to do this, personally, I think is pretty exceptional. We are up against races like Melbourne Marathon, which is 47 years, Gold Coast Marathon, which is 45, and Sydney Marathon, which is 25 years. So to get this as a start in our very, very first year, I think, again, is a credit to the group of people that have come together to help me pull it off.
So with the, you mentioned Sydney and Melbourne, you're jammed in the middle. Is that right? That's time-wise?
We're 3 weeks. 3 weeks after Sydney, 3 weeks after Melbourne.
So you could do all three if you wanted.
You could do all three, and a lot of people are like, why you've done that? You know, that just takes away. Well, sometimes you don't get a choice in timing. So when Kardinia Park came to us and said we had the stadium, the only time we could get the stadium was at this particular time. And you would think, okay, well, what about in the summer? But they are now going to have concerts, cricket, soccer, and the turf is even more protected during that time for those particular events. So this is at the end of their football season. It's sort of like one of those ones like, well, football season's over. We're not playing 40 finals.
Yep.
You know, we're going to be playing our finals up in Melbourne. So, yeah, if you want the stadium, you can.
Yeah.
Ballarat came into the fore. Now, April would have been a great time for us.
Yep.
Probably a bit too close to the Great Ocean Roads Marathon, and I wouldn't want to do anything to encroach on local events, but that would have been a great time frame. I tried to even look at December, but with Christmas shopping, that was a no-go. So everything just wasn't working out. And one of the problems I've had for the 2 years leading up to the date that we selected was that every single time we looked at a date, it was affected by another date. And I was really having a hard time just with me not wanting to upset other events that are already in existence. But it also did get to a point that if I didn't seize this moment now, like I was going to be my own worst enemy and it wouldn't get up off the ground. So we looked at everything, and then Sydney Marathon, they have 80,000 people that miss out on the ballot. Melbourne has around about 40,000 people that miss out. So I'm like, okay, there's 120,000 people that miss out. So there is actually a need to potentially put a race on at this time. So if you miss out and you've trained at this time, well, just do Geelong. There are other events that are on, and I think the only one that we really affected is Warrnambool, which was on the same time. And I emailed the owner and the race director, and I wholeheartedly apologised for where we're at, and I explained and basically gave them a year's notice of when it was going to be. John Jacoby has an event on. I called him, and his event's the week before, and he does a lot of adventure racing, and he was like, I think we'll be fine. There's not a lot of crossover. So yeah, to get it now and to have spoken to people and to see where it's going to fit, I personally am excited about it. It falls right at the start of school holidays. Geelong will probably play in the grand final the following week. So, you know, it gives everyone
as a given
a 6-day turnaround. For people that are going to come in to Geelong to experience it for the first time, you know, you've got school holidays, you can do our event, and if your AFL team is playing, you can head down to the Bellarine Peninsula, you can head down the Great Ocean Road, you can spend a few days travelling, go to Melbourne to watch the grand final and then fly home. So I think there's a lot of added benefits to where it sits now. It's been extremely hard because as a new time event, people don't know who we are. So you can pump out all the socials, take out media advertisements, you can spend a lot of money, but people already know where they're going to be and had already got backup plans if they didn't make Melbourne or Sydney. We come in at a second or a third or a fourth option, but what I've seen in the last probably month to 6 weeks is those numbers have started to track quite well for us, and we're sitting well. Like I had a goal of 1,500 as a minimum for the marathon. 2,000 is where I'd hoped, and we're currently over 1,500. So I'm happy with that to tick that bucket off. Half marathon, 2,500 to 3,000 is where I was hoping. We're at 1,200 still at 10 weeks out. That will jump up to probably close to 2,000. So might be just a little off on that. But to have 4,000, 4,500 just in the marathon and half marathon in our first year
massive.
is really good return.
Yeah, kudos. The inaugural Geelong Running Festival is coming up on Sunday, 20th of September 2026, and entries are filling fast. Whether you're chasing a marathon PB or lacing up for your very first race, there's a distance for everyone. The marathon, half marathon wheelchair, 6.5k community run, kids race, or all abilities 1 mile. The course is certified by World Athletics and AIMS recognised, taking you through the streets of Geelong, past the iconic Kardinia Park and along the picturesque Corio Bay and Eastern Beach foreshore before finishing at Steam Packet Gardens. Every entry includes a finisher's medal, marathon finisher t-shirt or hat for the half marathon, and access to the post-race recovery and party zone. Don't miss one of Victoria's biggest running weekends. Enter now at geelongrunningfestival.com.au and beat the next price increase. Regular entry pricing ends at midnight on the 31st of August 2026. Troopy, tell me about this party zone.
So one thing I wanted to do differently, which I now notice the Sydney Marathon's going to do this year, is I wanted to create one of the best post-race after parties. And what I've seen with a lot of races is, it's catered with activations and vendor expos, and a lot of people have finished their marathon, they've got their medal, and they want to have a burger, right? They want to have a beer. Like they've just sacrificed like 16 weeks of training. You know, the kale salads are out the window. Like they want to celebrate with friends. And so I see a lot of people leaving the post-race area to go and meet friends at a pub or somewhere else to get something to eat.
We were at London this year, and we were sort of walking back from the finish, and every pub was spilling onto the street with the finishers. Everyone had just gone to the pub immediately after finishing. Like that's just the culture of it, I guess.
It is, and I wanted to make sure that we tapped into that because Geelong is also well known for arts and music. So I decided that I didn't want to have vendor booths set up. I mean, the last thing you're thinking of buying is, a discounted gel after a race, right? Or I'm going to take a look at some shoes, or I'm going to take a look at, getting a race pack. So we're going to put our focus into our expo. So that $430 million convention centre is our expo for Friday, Saturday, and we'll have all the vendors all set up in there. But when you cross the line, you'll get your medal, you'll come into the steam packet area, and it is just beer wells and food and music. So the K-Rock entertainment area is going to have a DJ, and then we're going to have Andy Pobejoy and Chandel Cook that are going to get up there and do a set. And then I'm really excited because we're going to have the People's Poets, who are a very well-known band group here in Geelong that are also going to play. And when we're waiting for that 4 to 6 or that 5 to 6.5 hour participant, I still want 2,000 people down there cheering and screaming and being excited for them, because I feel like we put a lot of time into our winners and sort of up to 3 hours, maybe 3.5 hours. Post that, they miss out on everything. And I want them to feel just as appreciated, that we support them and we're excited by their performance. So I feel like making this an offering for people to stay around is going to add to the excitement of the event.
Yeah. Tell us about some of the product that might be on course, aid stations. Do we have sponsors locked in? Is there naming sponsors of the event yet?
Yep. So today we announced 3 critical sponsors in our program. So we have Zika Automobile. So they're a Chinese EV company.
Just around the corner here.
Yep. So it'll be Zika Marathon, and then we have Red Z Finance Solutions. So they will be the sponsor of our half marathon. And then we have Henley Homes that'll be the sponsor of our community 6.5k event. So we have them. We're also part of the City of Greater Geelong major events plan over the next 3 years. Visit Victoria, so state government, which is great. Gatorade will be our on-course hydration partner, and then Goo Energy Gels will be our nutrition partner. So we'll have them all set up on the course. And then we've been able to form partnerships with Deakin University. So they're going to help support our volunteers and how we're going to roll out all our volunteers out onto the course. And then as I sort of work through some of the announcements that we've already had, we've got Geelong Sports Medicine Centre. So they're going to be involved with helping us as our exercise partner, our professional partner, so strength and conditioning and things like that. Brooks Running is going to be involved. So they're going to be the sponsor of our expo. So Brooks Running are going to be heavily involved with activations involved with that. We have a retail partner with ProFeet here in Geelong. Then we have St. Layers that are helping us out with our merchandising, which we're excited to roll out our event logo on all of the merch. So and we've got a few more announcements that are coming on. So I mentioned before K-Rock and Bay FM as our media partners. I have O2 Events helping to execute the event alongside Altus, who do a lot of traffic management events. We're slowly rolling this out. We're 10 weeks out, and I feel like everything has come in really hard and fast. But that's just the nature of this type of event. Going into next year, a lot of the partners that we've already got will already sign on. We've given everyone a 1-year agreement and not a 3-year agreement, which is outside the rule of thumb, because when people sign on, they want that 3-year partnership. I'm more like, well, if you do the first year and we don't execute it right, why would you want 2 more years of this? And at the same time, if we don't get the benefits of what the sponsor has promised us, then why would I want that? So the only thing that we didn't get was an overall naming rights sponsor. And there's a lot of heartache in that, because when you come into Geelong and you start talking about a $1.5 million event, a lot of the people have done park runs, so it doesn't comprehend. So when you're saying, well, the naming rights sponsorship is $300,000, that just blows them away, and they don't see that. So we've had to work really hard, educate people. We've spoken with some Melbourne groups that Melbourne's tapped out, so a lot of them now looking at regional areas to expand their footprint. So I'm excited where the event can go, but we have to execute it correctly in year one. The one area that we didn't put a heap of focus in, which people will probably find this surprising, is in our elite side of things. So I had to look at prioritizing what the event was going to be and what it stood for. And I said before, community, and we want pride and passion. So locally, we have to win people over, and we have to make it about them. Then we've got to try to get people coming in to fill in hotels, restaurants, and things like that. So we're looking at how do we cater to those that are from outside of Geelong coming to Geelong and making it a destination place. Then we want to make everything in the event fantastic, from entertainment, post-race, and things like that. So the elite side of things took the blow in the first year.
You say that though, but I've seen the prize money. It's generous.
50,000 is what we've put on the line across events.
For a first event in a regional race, that's. Well, you just talked about how it wasn't actually a thing or a priority, but that's a ton of money.
Someone's going to win $5,000 first place. So that is a given. When I talk about the elites, I talk about trying to get in international athletes. Get in a couple of Kenyans, a couple of Japanese, and really try to make that a big event. I would need at least another $250,000 to $500,000 for that, because you've got to cover airfares, their accommodation, you've got to give them stipends, you've got to increase the prize money, then you've got to do drug testing. So that takes a really big hit.
Well, Melbourne has shown you don't need that to get a lot of attention on the event. Like when Melbourne stopped bringing them in, it told the story of the local athletes so much more anyway.
They've done well in focusing on the Australian athletes. So they offer good prize money, so a lot more prize money than us. But people in Australia now know that if they're going to go to a race to get bigger prize money, Melbourne is where you're going to go. Now, you wouldn't go to Sydney because you're not going to win, right? They'll have a small amount of Australian prize money, but our best athletes are going to run it because it's a world marathon major and you can score big points in doing an event like that. So I'm really mindful of just where everything is being spent. I'm not drawing a wage. I haven't touched 1 cent with the money that's come in, and I've made a promise to myself that I'm going to get the event done for the first year. We're going to be either under or over. We'll be 100, 150 under, 100, 150,000 over. But then that, regardless of whether we're under or over, that puts us in a really good place for next year based on that. So there's a $300,000 differential, but moving into next year with already the commitment with the City of Greater Geelong and where we are with some of our other partners, that'll just make everything a lot better. And we'll move to a 2-day event next year. So we've already started planning, doing the kids race and all abilities race on the Saturday, 5K, 10K on the Saturday,
Yep.
and then half marathon on the Sunday. And a lot of people will be like, well, why can't you do a marathon, half marathon? And I heard all the arguments about Melbourne. Why couldn't they have done that on a Saturday? When you start closing down streets, right, it costs a lot of money. So on the Sunday, it's $250,000 just for our traffic management plan.
Yeah.
So if you want to then do a half marathon on a different day and the marathon on a different day, it's not $250,000 on 2 days.
Yeah.
It would then be an additional 150 to 200. So all of a sudden you're up to 450,000 just for traffic
Same
management.
amount of entries.
Correct. So we need to make sure that we're mindful of how we execute it, how we roll it out. And yeah, like I said, I feel like we're in a really good position. That's not to say that when we do the event, there could be some flaws or some things that happen that we didn't prepare for, but you don't know until you actually do the event.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, the course. So someone's listening now, they're thinking, yeah, I did miss out on Sydney and I did miss out on Melbourne. What are they going to be in for in terms of stats? Like, is there going to be climbing? What's the average temperature on the day? Do you know those things off the top of your head?
Yep, so the average temperature could be anywhere between 13 and 16 degrees, which is ideal running weather. But you could also get 13 degrees and pouring rain and wind. So we do find that September is very similar to doing a marathon in March if you're on the other side of the world. So if you go to Japan, March is not a bad time to run. In the US, March is not a bad time to run. And in Europe, it's not a bad time to run. October falls to April, right? So March, April, in those parts of the races is what we're going to experience in our September, October here. Daylight savings hasn't kicked in, so it's still going to be daylight at 6 in the morning. So it's not like you have to navigate down in the dark before you've got to get to the start line. So we'll still have daylight, which is good.
Wait, the race starts at 6?
7 o'clock.
7,
Yep. So wheelchairs at 6:55. Marathon, half marathon, 7 o'clock. Community run is at 7:25. But people like to get down there an hour before.
Yeah, sure.
So that sort of makes it hard. So yeah, there will be daylight, so people won't have to worry about that. Elevation is around about 200 for the marathon. Works down to about 120. It's about 187 to 200, depending on whether you Strava, Map My Run, Garmin.
Let's go 187.
There's 5 different variations to 5 different platforms. So we've got that sorted out. The half marathon's around about 130, and the community run is 47.
So the extra 21.1 is only 50 metres for the marathon.
Because once you head out to Point Henry, it's flat.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, there's no hills. It's the
That's
flattest
lower
part.
than, is that lower than, is 187 less than Melbourne or about the same?
I would think that we're higher than Melbourne.
Yeah, I don't know. I reckon. Oh, maybe this year's Melbourne's different.
Yeah. I don't think there's too many hills in Melbourne. Like we've got Murrible Street.
So you go up the Tan Hill, you go up the Fitzroy Street.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that we're probably higher in elevation.
Maybe a little bit.
I wouldn't be disrespectful to Melbourne. But yeah, like I said, we've got a great course. The weather should be good. We want, obviously, everyone to come and to get that country feel, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, Melbourne's a big city feel and you get that. And Sydney's an even bigger part to that. But we want to have this nice country feel. I mean, Ballarat's done such a great job of how they've been able to position themselves. I mean, their position is April, good weather, flat, fast, right? And people want that. We're not promoting flat, fast. We're promoting a good, honest course. New York, Boston, they're not fast courses. We've got more to offer, we feel, with our region. And so we want people to be able to come and to enjoy that. The Geelong Arts Centre has a big event on the Friday night, and we're going to collaborate with them. So when people come in, they can get passes to go to their art show. And then we do hope that as we move along, that the entertainment side of what we do gets bigger. So I had approached Mark Seymour, who I knew personally well, to come and actually play at the after party for us, the post-race party. But unfortunately, because it's grand final week, he has to play the Holy Grail 1,000 times. So I couldn't get him, and the money that people will pay for Mark and the Holy Grail obviously far outweighs what I'd be able to pay. But as we build, I would really love to have a headline act every year so that when people come, we've got music, like I said, we've got beer. Blackman's Brewery is a sponsor. They're going to be brewing a specific Geelong Running Festival beer. So our logo is going to be on the can. What sort of beer? It's going to be a hazy at around about 5.4%. Yeah, so happy about that. Very similar to what they did with the Cadell event.
Yep.
So we're going to have that. We're going to roll that out. And if anyone saw our logo, the work that went into our logo for this year was to highlight what Geelong is, but every year it'll be a different logo. So we plan to get these iconic parts of Geelong that'll be on shirts and medals. And I saw this at the Toronto Waterfront Marathon, where every year they have a different logo, and that logo is representative of an iconic building or landmark that they have. So that was another thing. So, I mean, there's 50 different races that I've pulled things from to put it into Geelong, but Geelong will definitely have its own look and feel.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I mean, there's going to be plenty of people out there looking for a race. Sounds like Geelong's, I mean, personally, I love the idea of a marathon in Geelong. We've had such a great heritage of runners down here, and I'm stoked. So thanks so much for putting it on.
I'm excited, and we also, before I said we're tapping into history, and I talked about Nathan Deeks. So Nathan Deeks is actually going to be our guest of honour here. So 20 years ago, I put on a 50k walk that he broke Robert Korzeniowski's world record. All the kids in the Kids 1K and All Abilities race are going to get a medal with Nathan Deeks.
Yep.
So we did a big medal launch, and that was for the 6.5 half marathon and marathon. So Nathan's going to come down, present the awards to kids and sign autographs and take photos. But next year we'll have a Paralympian. The year after we'll have another Olympian. So the idea is to, again, tap into our history of great people that we've had. We've got so many Olympians and Paralympians that live in Geelong. So I want to celebrate their efforts as well and get them to be involved. So I don't think there's one element in this that I've missed.
Yeah.
And if I have, I'm happy for someone to point it out. But we're starting an Indigenous marathon or training group here. Yeah. So through Tyson and Scott Cracker, we're going to look at how we can build an Indigenous group. We've given away free entries to 13 different charities here in Geelong, but they have to raise a minimum $500 per entry.
Yeah.
So that's money that goes into them. And all the kids that are part of a NDIS program, they all get free entries. So as I said, I feel like I've given a lot to so many different areas. And when we get here on the 19th and the 20th of September, everyone will actually get to see how it plays out.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thanks so much for sharing the journey so far. And we've got entries, geelongrunningfestival.com.au. 31st of August, the price increase hits, so you might as well get in there. But yeah, thanks so much, Lee, for telling the story of the marathon, and all the best with it.
Thanks, Moose. I appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like to be part of history and run through the heart of Geelong, enter now at geelongrunningfestival.com.au.
And I'm gonna hold my head up high. I was taught as a young man, doesn't matter if you're white or black. Just show love to everyone you meet, doesn't matter if it don't come back.